the comic book gurus.
So who is the most famous Time Lord ever? Now you're wondering, was that a question or an answer? Well, it was both. After all, who can argue that who is the most famous Time Lord of all time? Yes, who could argue that? Because as who is eminently qualified to argue why who is the most famous Time Lord? I'll give you a second to wipe that drool off of your chin. Of course, I'm talking about Doctor Who, that ever-morphing, ever-entertaining, TARDIS-piloting smarty pants. He first made his debut in 1963, or the original version made that debut. And now, after over 36 seasons, with a break during the 90s and 15 official Doctors, 4 variations, so to speak, we find ourselves with the newest Doctor played by Ncuti'S. So the question is, how did Gatwa do? With who? Are Whovians screaming Yahoo or boohoo? So for the answer, we go to the legendary, well, at least to me, legendary comic book gurus, Craig Legans, Rockstar Rob, and Steph. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hey.
All right, guys. Now, for context, and since this is a multi-decade juggernaut, I want each of you to give me your overall Doctor Who fan level from 1 to 5, 5 being super fan. Now, Steph, we're doing this all because you are a Doctor Who fan. I'm going to have you rate yourself first. 1 to 5, what level of Doctor Who fan are you?
10.
10.
Oh, yes.
Wow. So you've been through you've been from the get-go, you have been all in on Doctor Who.
Well, I was late to the game per usual, but binged the seasons when I was, I believe I was pregnant with Harper and had some time and was like, you know what? I've heard so much about it. At the time, they had just started with Peter Capaldi, so people were talking about the new Doctor. So I was like, I need to get into this. I've heard a lot about it. You know, these characters, this character that changes. You know, there's all this discussion about the new Doctor. So we started from the 9th Doctor. It's hard to find a lot of the originals. A lot of them were destroyed and they're hard to find, but I was like, let me just start at 9, kind of when they revamped the and brought the season back, or the series back, and then just binged and caught up until we got to Capaldi, and then have been up to date since then. So
color me impressed. Very good. And so I think next up, I'm going to go down the list to the next big Whovian. It'll be you, Rockstar Rob. What's the story with you? 1 to 5.
Well, I would say 5.
5. Okay.
I'm a big fan. I've been following Doctor Who since Tom Baker.
All right, so you go back that far. All right, yeah. So for me, and I'll explain my level in just a bit, but Tom Baker would be the one that I most associate with the character of Doctor Who. So, Craig Legans, where do you stand on Doctor Who, 1 to 5?
I'm who's on first. I'm at a 1.
You're at a 1.
I'm at a 1. This current season, the most recent season of Doctor Who, 2024, is the first season and first episode of Doctor Who I've ever watched ever.
So let me ask you, Steph, in this whole thing, your assessment after watching Ncuti'S this season, this series, how does it stack up to the other Doctors you have been watching throughout the years? How does he stack up?
Oh boy. So David Tennant was my obsession. Still is my obsession. I loved him as the Doctor. I was a little bit biased going into the series because I'd heard that he was a fan favorite. So I was anxious to get to him as the Doctor. Although, I did watch Christopher Eccleston's 9 because I thought I wanted to give him a fair shot too. But definitely loved David Tennant and could see why people really enjoyed him. Now, then we switched to Matt Smith, and people were like, oh, he's so young. Most of the Doctors have been older. I ended up loving Matt Smith. Then people complained about Peter Capaldi. Oh, now he's too old. I don't know. He sucks. But I liked him not as much. Then we get to Ncuti'S, and, he hasn't really done a whole lot since, before he became the Doctor. So I was kind of doing some research on him. And, he's going to give David Tennant a run for his money for me. He might be my new favorite, and I hate to say it because I feel like I'm cheating on David Tennant, who I've met twice at Comic-Con, and I feel really sad about it. But I also have to be real and just absolutely, I love him.
Steph,
yes.
If you took Jodie Whittaker out and it went from Capaldi to this guy, right? Not even to Tennant, to this guy. Would you like him just as much? Because I think a lot of people like this guy more so because they hated Jodie Whittaker.
That's a good question. I did like Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor. I didn't like her seasons as much. So I think if we had gone from Capaldi to him, I still would have really liked him. Because I didn't really have as much venom towards Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor as a lot of people did. I didn't like her seasons though. But still, I
Bad
think I
writing.
would have liked. Yeah, yeah. There were three companions. It was too much to. I felt like the seasons were all over the place. At least they kind of came back to a lot of like monster of the week, but then also an underlying theme that they took through the whole season, which was good. But yeah, I think I would have liked him as much. I like Jodie Whittaker. She wasn't my favorite, but also her seasons were not great either.
There almost seems a willing intent to pull away from the old fan base and reinvent this for a new group of prospective fans. Do you feel that? And do you feel that, if so, is that the right way to go, or is that a misstep? Anybody can take that.
I think I have to say this. With the Fox X-Men, they instructed them, do not read any of the comic books, do not do it. We want everybody to be fresh. The only person that disobeyed that was Hugh Jackman. He went back and bought all the Wolverine comics, and look where all those characters are, and look where Hugh Jackman is. So
Right,
yes,
right. I think there's a level of hubris in coming in, Steph, and taking something that is done so well and that they managed to keep, so popular for so long, and say, no, we have to fix it, and we're not only that, we're going to lecture you on things. I think
Yeah.
when you're dealing with a sci-fi fan base, you're dealing with the Doctor Who fan base in particular over the course of years. I think on the whole, you're dealing with a much more informed, much more
Yes.
accepting audience. It seems like you're looking at exactly the wrong people and wagging your finger at them. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page with you and Rob with this too. I think and the fan base is it's so vast. It's been on since the 60s, on and off. And I think I think the diehard fans, especially ones who have been around since, the first Doctor, would feel kind of like sloughed aside if they're just going to erase everything. We're going to start over. It's just too big of a show. There's too much there. There's too many fans who are way into it, and I think it's doing them a disservice to just wipe the slate clean.
Interesting. I want to ask you, Craig, since Ncuti'S is your first, your impression on the series, your impression about what these guys have been saying about the history of the series and where this character succeeds and falls, and where you consider the writing level at, because you're just a babe in the woods right here. What's your take on this season one of a Doctor Who?
Walking into it as a complete blank slate, but knowing the history of Doctor Who and how many people played a part in building the Who fandom, I thought that this Doctor, Ncuti Doctor, I thought that's how all doctors act. I thought because he's just a variation of the previous Who's, that all doctors act like that. So I didn't know, hearing from you guys, from Rob and Steph the first time, that he is supposed to know more, or wasn't as clueless as he was in this. I thought this is how he's the same Doctor, just a variation of the previous ones, that all doctors act like this. All the previous doctors were this charismatic and this big and overboard, and and sweet and sexy, and again, charismatic. So for a first timer, yeah, I like to see more where this Doctor goes. I like to see a season 16 just to see where this one goes, because I enjoyed the the characters, the villains. I love. I was telling Steve before we went on the air, I love Maestro. I love going back to see
Yeah.
where the Beatles first recorded, because that's what blew my mind. I love this scene here, like they're going to Avengers Tower. If that's where the Doctor Who headquarters are, I want to definitely want to see more of that. But so yeah, I as a newbie, I'm in. I don't feel like going back all the way back to 1963 to get caught up, but if this is my starting point, I'm fine with it.
A quick look at some of the reviews here. This is off of the Rotten Tomatoes, the civilian reviewer section. The new Doctor is refreshing to watch as the Matt Smith era, the snow falling and Susan's twist characters appearing in each episode can be compared to the crack in the wall for season 5. I don't get why there's so much criticism. Then you go to a 1-star review. I grew up watching Classic Who. I watched it again with my kids when it came back. Lord knows I've tried to like this new version, but as nice as the new lead may be, and everyone is always uniformly kind of saying that, Ncuti'S very charismatic, this iteration of the Doctor is portrayed as weak, thick, and that's kind of my issue. Over emotional and constantly surprised, and that's one of my issues. Mm-hmm. The pacing is also over the shop, or maybe over the top, owing to the need for shallow emotional moments that add nothing to the story. So 1 star, 4 stars, 1 star, 4 stars, 4 stars, 1 star. So I guess the general edict would be let it breathe a bit, see what they can do and incorporate, because certainly they're getting, as you can see, hammered in the ratings. I mean, this is the lowest over 60 years on air. And the one thing you don't want is this incredible legacy to go away. So especially for you guys, Rob, your take as we start to wrap up on this, because again, they're saying they're not sure about season 16. So what is your last bit of doctoring here to doctor the Doctor, and what can they do to make sure that it continues?
Think when they changed the Doctor's origin during Jodie Whittaker, it riled so many people up that it's like building blocks. It's like playing Django or something, It's like you're building everything back up. So it's hard. They're trying to figure out what to keep, what to toss, what they did right, what they did wrong. And, I think we just want to be entertained. And honestly, I thought the plot lines were thin. They didn't follow through with things. But the last arc, which was the finale, I thought that was the closest they got to previous Doctors. So maybe they're figuring it out on the way.
Okay. All right. Steph, you're doctoring the Doctor. What needs to be done?
Yeah, I mean, I think we could do a little course correction on his version of the Doctor to maybe help out the fans come around to him a little bit more. I don't think it was fair to say that he was over emotional. I kind of like to see that because, other Doctors have yelled, have screamed. He just happens to cry, and that's fine.
Sure.
I'm not a crier. So I kind of appreciate people who can. And, this is one of the very few shows that does get me to tear up. And I did at the finale for this one. So the fact that this show gets me that emotional, I think says a lot. That's just me though. But yeah, I think they can kind of fix things for the fans. Again, I loved it. I don't think it was as bad as people are saying. I think Doctor Who is good at just like, you know what? We messed up here. We're just going to create this like sci-fi reason for this happening. They could bring it back. Just change it. Be like, what? We were wrong. Let's just fix it. It's sci-fi. Just do it and move on.
It comes down to this. Stop effing with canon. Stop insulting the longtime fans. You can evolve the character, but don't dismiss things, as Rob was talking about, with them really doing some titanic shifting of origin stories, and you get people pissed off. It's what happens, and everyone's pissed off, as you said. It's a dumpster fire of a world out there. Let's have some. Let's have something we can all turn to and have a good time with. Craig will give you the last on this. You're looking forward to more of this? Are you in? Are you going to go back and go through the decades of seasons that are available to you now?
I may just look at a few Jodie Whittaker episodes, maybe look at a few David Tennant episodes. But as far as this is my maiden voyage of into the Whovian world of timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly stuff. I like to just go forward from here. This will be my start point. This is, some people said the reason why it sucks so badly or people don't like it is because it's been Disney-fied. Keep it on
No, but
Disney.
Disney, Craig, Disney has had such a wonderful track record recently of creating incredible new variations on Star Wars and Marvel. The fans just adore what they're doing over there at Disney. But no, I know what you're saying. You cannot also, by default, react to everything that Disney does without giving it its own context and its own assessment. And so you can't carry in luggage from the other things as well. Give it a shot, right?
Exactly. Just give it a shot and let this, let it breathe a little bit. It's one season, or the 15th Doctor, but just let's see where we go with this before we make any drastic radical changes. But as a first timer, I enjoyed it. I'm in.
All right. Enough said, guys. Thank you, Steph. Thank you for the insight into Doctor Who. My eyes, I'm maybe at a number 2. You're at a number 1, Craig. Maybe we move up. Maybe the next time you talk to us, I'm at a 3 and you're at a 2, Craig. So let's see how it all works out. Hit that like button, subscribe to the Gurus podcast. Stuff does come out. It's infrequent right now. I'm going to do the best to make sure we can get more of those, more of these episodes up and running. But as always, we love you, and go to your TARDIS now and travel around the universe. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.